Welcome to the show, everybody. You see the news right there. Adrian Wojnarowski dropping the Woj bomb yesterday that the 76ers set to hire Nick Nurse, NBA champion Nick Nurse, Coach of the Year Nick Nurse, Coach of the quadruple doink Nick Nurse, two-time British League champion Nick Nurse, two-time D-League and G-League champion Nick Nurse. He comes to Philadelphia to be your next head coach, taking over for Doc Rivers. Hello, welcome to the Farzy Show. My name is Mark Farzy. This is the Farzy Show, and we hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. For those that like to make comments about my alleged cannabis use, when it comes to the smoking a ganj, I don't really smoke a ganj, but I know you guys like to make references to my red eyes. Just fighting through allergies today, folks. Just fighting through allergies. For the people on the podcast, it just feels like my eyes are very red. And then the people in the comments will make comments about how my eyes are so red. What was I doing right before the show? I was popping allergy medication is what I was doing. But welcome in. I do hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. Feels like we haven't been, and then it took yesterday off, sort of. I mean, I've been doing the Phillies post-game shows on Jacob Media. Was hosting throughout the entire, like actually hosting people at the house, not just hosting the show. But I was hosting the Phillies post-game on Jacob Media. But it still feels like one day of not doing this show, because we took off yesterday for Memorial Day. One day feels like I haven't seen you guys in ages. So it's nice to have you along once again, ladies and gentlemen. What an action-packed weekend. And I had a feeling, and I don't know what prompted me to have this feeling. Maybe with other coaching vacancies being filled, like with the Bucks, Adrian Griffin, for instance, and some other names being floated out there, the Raptors, Kenny Atkinson, potentially, some other things that have been out there. I just had a feeling that there was going to possibly something was going to go down over the weekend. So when we talked to Kai Carlin on Friday about what was going to go down over the weekend about the Sixers coaching search, he was kind of the feeling, and if I was betting money, I wouldn't have bet money that on Memorial Day the Sixers were going to come down and hire Nick Nurse, or at least the story would break about Nick Nurse becoming the next head coach of the 76ers. But it happened. I don't know how Nick Nurse came to this conclusion. I would assume coaching the reigning MVP has more pull and sway than I imagined, because if you're Nick Nurse, you've already won a championship. You're looking around the league, you're looking at a team like the Suns, they seem like they're a little bit more championship ready than the 76ers. More assets, potentially. Money-wise, they're going to have their issues, certainly. But what we're looking at right now in Philadelphia with Tobias Harris's contract, with what could happen next with James Harden, a lot is up in the air. And I did not think that this would be the number one thing on Nick Nurse's list when it came to opportunities he was going to have to be a head coach again. But here I am, a man sitting before you, a little shocked that not only this happened, but that this happened so quickly. One of the things that Daryl Morey had talked about in his end of the year press conference was how this was going to be a situation that was going to be a long search. Well, evidently not, ladies and gentlemen. Evidently not, as the Sixers have found their new man. And Keith Pompey, as you would assume, reports that Joel Embiid, as you would assume, would be okay with this coaching hiring. Keith Pompey putting it out there on social media saying Nick Nurse did meet with Joel Embiid during the Sixers coaching interview process, and according to a league source, the meeting went well. Well, as one would assume if they are going to be making the hire. But I have to tell you, and if you caught the emergency show yesterday, set the scene. I'm in the kitchen. My neighbor did a little crabbing, right? I'm a big fan of crabs. If you listen to this show a lot, you know that my mother's from Baltimore, and I absolutely love crabs. So, I mean, who doesn't really? I was steaming some crabs. Look down at the phone. Woj bomb. Sixers to hire Nick Nurse. Did the emergency show. So if you caught that, some of this might be redundant. If not, here's where I stand on the Nick Nurse hire. This is a great hire. I am very excited about Nick Nurse being the head coach of the 76ers because I think Nick Nurse is a great head coach. This does not put me over the edge in some weird way that this team all of a sudden is going to make a finals appearance. It doesn't automatically make me think that, he's going to wave some magic wand and get the absolute best out of Joel Embiid. In fact, if I was to criticize this move at all, it would be that Nick Nurse really likes to play his starters, his stars, even a little too much, and that's something he can't do with Joel Embiid. So I hope that right out of the gate, that's something he's able to acknowledge, and he knows that you have to have a guy like Joel Embiid load managed throughout the season to make sure that he is healthy and in tip-top shape when it comes to health for the postseason. However, when it comes to tacticians, when it comes to getting the best out of his players, when it comes to being a motivator, when it comes to holding players accountable, this is a guy that can do that. And the number one thing that I am excited about when it comes to Nick Nurse being the head coach of the 76ers is watching a guy like Pascal Siakam work his ass off to become a better player. First, become an NBA most improved player, then become an all-star, then become an NBA all-star again. And that was all under the tutelage of Nick Nurse. Now, did Nick Nurse just walk over to Pascal Siakam and like touch him on the forehead and all of a sudden he was an all-star? No, that's not how it happened. You have to have, as a coach, to have a player improve, you have to have a very willing participant. And as we know here in Philadelphia, we had a guy like Ben Simmons who wasn't exactly a very willing participant when it came to getting better at the game of basketball. Tyrese Maxey and Pascal Siakam are both willing participants when it comes to working their asses off to become better basketball players. If Nick Nurse could help the evolution and maturation process of Pascal Siakam in the way that he did, I want to see what he can do with a guy like Tyrese Maxey. I know everyone's going to want to talk about the surface headline here is Joel Embiid and Nick Nurse. And that's great because he is your star, and this is a champion head coach. This is obviously a coach of the year as well. So I get that. But the thing I'm more excited about, because I don't know what more you can squeeze out of Joel Embiid, especially when it comes to just the regular season. I know there's a lot left to be desired when it comes to NBA Joel Embiid, and yes, I am excited for that. But as I have told you many times before, the regular season for me is a long appetizer to get to the meat and potatoes entree of the NBA playoffs. That's what really matters. Everything else is just having a good time, snacking a little bit before we get to the main course. So if Nick Nurse could get Joel Embiid to the playoffs, get him there healthy, get him there 100%, then that's great. But what I need to see from Nick Nurse is how he extracts the next level from Joel Embiid. And that's what I'll have to wait for the postseason. If he can, during the course of the regular season, assuming James Harden is not back, if he can get Tyrese Maxey to an all-star level of play, which, by the way, I don't think Maxey's very far from anyway, but if he can help take Tyrese Maxey's game to the next level, then I'm going to feel a lot better about what the Sixers' future looks like over the next 2 seasons. And then you see what you can do with Tobias Harris's contract. You see what you could do in NBA free agency this year. You see if this helps attract a free agent like Fred VanVleet, who is, I still think, a hell of a player and would be a good addition to the 76ers. There's a lot that is that's set to be figured out here from the Sixers, and I am looking forward to seeing how Nick Nurse pulls the best out of the Sixers that are on the roster right now, the Sixers that are under contract. I would think if I'm James Harden, this is still an attractive move. You still might have wanted Mike D'Antoni, as reports are out there. You still might say, this doesn't matter, I want to go back to Houston. Maybe this is the type of move that makes a guy like James Harden want to stick around. I'm still hoping that he doesn't, and then he moves on and goes back to Houston or wherever. But for me, I think that this was the first great step the Sixers could make, the best first step the Sixers could make in this offseason. So for that, I am excited. Don't get it confused. Don't get it twisted. This doesn't mean that all of a sudden the Sixers are some title contender again. That's not the avenue I'm going with this. The avenue I'm going with this is that the Sixers took the best possible first step into the offseason when it comes to the art of acquisition instead of the art of dismissal, such as firing Doc Rivers. Woj did go on ESPN yesterday to talk about the move with the Sixers, and here's where it still stands as the deal is still being worked out.
Nick Nurse has agreed to a deal to become the next head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers. Both the Phoenix Suns and Sixers were engaged with Nurse's agent, Andy Miller, of Clutch Sports today. But ultimately, Nick Nurse goes to Philadelphia. Number one, the chance to coach the MVP, Joel Embiid. And Sixers president GM Daryl Morey, he worked with Nick Nurse in Houston. They have familiarity, history, certainly a lot of history between Nurse and the Sixers during his 5-year run in Toronto, including that 2019 playoff series that on Nurse's way to winning that championship with the Raptors. But for the Sixers, really a significant hiring. Nick Nurse was highly in demand in this marketplace, and now they land Nick Nurse. They're working out details of the deal, both Andy Miller and Clutch and the Sixers right now. But he's committed to the Sixers, and now Phoenix's search continues on. But I think for the Sixers to replace Doc Rivers, championship coach in his own right, they're going to hire now another championship coach, Nick Nurse.
All right, great job, of course, by the Sixers in this deal here. Here's a look at the coaching reference page for Nick Nurse. If you just take a look at this real quick, the 5 years he was an assistant under Dwayne Casey. I honestly forgot that Nick Nurse, and I remember at the time Daryl Morey was brought in here. They were talking about connections he has made with head coaches, Mike D'Antoni being one of them. Nick Nurse in the D League with the Houston Rockets, I forgot about. But yeah, they had that connection when he was coaching I think it was the G League. It had been changed to the G League. When he was coaching the Houston Rockets G League team back in the day. That's where the connection was first made. And then from there, he got the assistant coach job in Toronto, where he worked under Dwayne Casey for 5 seasons. We know about the championship. We all know too well the championship with that 58-win season when they got Kawhi Leonard, then 53 after that. The following year, after they won the championship, that's when he won the NBA Coach of the Year award. And then we know 2 years ago, getting that Raptors team at 48-34 into the playoffs and watching them handle their business during the course of the regular season to make the playoffs, and just being annoying as all hell against the 76ers, as we all know. This is what I know it might seem obvious. I think I used the word obvious when I put this up here with Keith Pompey saying that Joel Embiid met with Nick Nurse. After that meeting, if Daryl Morey and Joel Embiid sat in a room for a minute and talked about whether or not this was a good move, and Joel Embiid really gave his blessing, there's an ownership to that from Joel Embiid that gives me a little bit of hope that Joel Embiid is absolutely going to buy into Nick Nurse. He's going to listen to Nick Nurse, because the head coach really does not only have to set the atmosphere, but he's got to organize it all. He's got to make it make sense. So if Joel Embiid is saying, yes, this is the guy that I would want, if he is giving his endorsement, there's an ownership to that. And it's not nearly as much as a guy like Daryl Morey has in hiring another head coach here in Philadelphia. But the interesting thing here is that Joel Embiid, if he gives his endorsement, it kind of makes him buy in from the get-go, because it's partially his idea. Giving his blessing. I know we talk about Mike D'Antoni being a James Harden guy, and whether or not Nick Nurse could be a Joel Embiid guy, whatever it might be. But if you're giving your endorsement to a coach, that's saying, oh yeah, this will work. So if it doesn't work, that makes you not really look great if you're Joel Embiid. I can only hope, and I think it's even just a morsel, just a tiny bit. I think that will help Joel Embiid buy into whatever Nick Nurse is selling in terms of how he's going to organize this offense and organize this defense. One of the things I think Nick Nurse has to do coming in here, and I mentioned the load management with Joel Embiid, I mentioned the improvement with Tyrese Maxey. I think he does have to make this a little bit more of a guard-dominant offense. I mean, look, James Harden in this offense last year, of course, led the league in assists, so that's great. But in terms of in the playoffs, half-court sets, he has to make sure that this team has a steady flow to their offense in the postseason. During the course of the regular season, Joel Embiid will get his. I'm sure Tyrese Maxey will get his. I want to see if he can get more out of Tobias Harris and increase his role, because I don't think Tobias Harris is getting unloaded in this offseason. From the NBA experts we've had on the show already since the end of the season, nobody really sees Tobias Harris getting moved until maybe the trade deadline of the upcoming season. But as of right now, nobody sees him getting traded, because that contract is still really difficult to move. Yes, it helps. It helps in the least bit that he's in the final year of the deal. But if I am drawing up the Sixers starting 5 for next season for what Nick Nurse is going to have to work with, Tobias Harris is going to be in that starting 5. And maybe with Nick Nurse's scheme, maybe he can find a way to get a lot more out of Tobias Harris. Ultimately, like every sport, it's going to come down to the player and what the player is going to give and what the player's mindset is going to be. I need Nick Nurse to be that tactician that Daryl Morey talked about. I need Nick Nurse to be that motivator, but ultimately I need him to be a psychiatrist with this team. I need him to get inside the minds of Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, and see what they could get, what more the Sixers can get from them. Joel Embiid in the postseason, Tobias Harris throughout the entire regular season and the postseason. And organizing this offense to make sure that everyone's getting theirs, organize this offense to make sure that in those half-court sets you're still very productive, because it's all going to be about getting ready for the playoffs. If the Sixers don't win, 52, 53 games, 55 games, fine. That's not going to matter to me. If this team makes it into the playoffs and they look like a different team, especially in half-court sets with Nick Nurse as their head coach, that will give me a lot more optimism about what they can do throughout a long playoff run and not just one that fizzles out in the second round. It's going to come down to Nick Nurse being that psychiatrist. It's going to come down to Nick Nurse getting more from Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris. If, yes, he is here on this roster, I will throw that in. I do think he will be. And it's going to come down to how he manages the workload of Joel Embiid throughout the entire year. That's really what I want to see from Nick Nurse in his first year as the Sixers head coach. He does all that. You get more out of these guys. You organize this offense better. Defense is still going to be top-notch, I think. You get a team like this going out there into the playoffs and showing throughout the regular season that they can get to this gear, then you have a lot more to be excited about than I thought at the close of last year. It's a great first step. It's the best first step the Sixers could have taken. One of the things that I really do admire about Nick Nurse is I know we all have the quadruple doink. I know that after that we have Joel Embiid walking off the court in 2019, and he's crying, and the emotions and all that, the tears are flowing. That's what really sticks out in my head about that 2019 run. But what's also up there that doesn't get talked about enough is why I have confidence that Nick Nurse will help help a guy like Tyrese Maxey mature more into a all-star player. Nick Nurse took to the podium after the second-round win over the Sixers in 2019, and he was asked about Pascal Siakam and what type of player he is. And I remember him talking about how at the end of the previous season, a kid from Cameroon as well, Pascal Siakam, just like Joel Embiid, went into his office and talked about how he needed to get better and what he needs to do to become a shooter. And Nick Nurse and him had a conversation, and after that, Pascal Siakam went into the gym and he put in the work. I wanted Doc Rivers here in Philadelphia because I thought Doc Rivers was going to be this authoritative figure for Ben Simmons that Ben Simmons couldn't ignore. That everyone respected Doc Rivers. And if Doc Rivers was going to draw up a play for Ben Simmons to shoot a basketball, Ben Simmons, by golly, was going to do it. That obviously didn't happen. The reason I bring that up is because it ultimately is up to the player. Nick Nurse had a guy like Pascal Siakam who wanted to put in the work, who was not satisfied with just making it to the NBA, wasn't satisfied by being in the starting lineup, wanted to be an all-star. He wanted to be a special player, and that's what he's become. I mentioned the resume already. Two-time all-star, the most improved player, all that. Tyrese Maxey, even before the signing with Nick Nurse, I was looking at it as if James Harden is not back, I am ready to go into this season with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey and see if Tyrese Maxey can have another huge leap forward, the same leap forward that he had when he took over for Ben Simmons during all the drama from 2 years ago, when Ben Simmons wasn't reporting to camp, and there were stories about the guys wanting to go out to L.A. to visit Ben Simmons, and he said, "No, I'm good. Don't worry about it." And during that entire time, Tyrese Maxey was still working on his game, and he was back in the lineup, and he was in your store. He was now thrown into the starting five, and he was helping run your offense. That was a huge leap forward from year one to year two from Tyrese Maxey. And we saw a little flash of it, actually, in the postseason of the previous year when the Sixers lost in 7 to the Atlanta Hawks. We saw at times Tyrese Maxey step up and show that he could be one hell of a contributor on this team. Then he got the opportunity to prove it the following year by being a starter. And then we saw another nice leap forward last year as well. With a guy who could develop talent like Nick Nurse, the sky's the limit. And when I was doing a hit, for our friends at CBS3 over the weekend, one of the things I got into was the idea of Tyrese Maxey taking a Jalen Hurts type leap forward in this upcoming season. I don't bet against guys with great work ethics and guys with talent. And that's what Jalen Hurts had a year ago. And man, did he cash in on that? And both in the metaphorical and literal sense, did he cash in on that? Super Bowl appearance, runner-up to the MVP award to Patrick Mahomes? That's a hell of a leap forward. And not a lot of people had confidence in him doing that. And if that's one of those things, that if you brought that up a year prior to it happening, you're crazy. There's no way Jalen Hurts can make that kind of leap. Well, he made it. Can Tyrese Maxey make that kind of leap as a professional athlete? If James Harden isn't here and Tyrese Maxey continues to work, and every year we've already seen him get better, and now he has a coach that can develop talent like Nick Nurse, that's a great thing. Somebody hit me up on Twitter yesterday and was talking about how really it comes down to the assistant coaches developing a guy like Tyrese Maxey. And I said, you're not wrong. We saw what Sam Cassell was able to do here in Philadelphia with Tyrese Maxey. It's a great thing. If Nick Nurse wasn't a head coach for years, a decade overseas in the British Basketball League, and look, I'm not saying that the British Basketball League is some, world-renowned basketball league and it's like the NBA. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that Nick Nurse was a head coach during that time. That was a long time to be the decision maker, okay? And then be a head coach in the D League and the G League and winning 4 championships in those professional basketball leagues, by the way. And then was an assistant coach in the NBA for 5 years under a good head coach like Dwayne Casey. Like, the guy's got a lot of experience. So I don't necessarily think he's the same old song and dance head coach that we have seen for so many years. This is a guy that is not afraid to get his hands dirty, get in there with his players, coach them up as if he was still an assistant coach. I know that the assistant coaches are going to be more one-on-one guys, but the fact that this guy has such a background, 5 years NBA assistant coach, I think that's a great thing for the development. It's a great endorsement for the development that Nick Nurse is willing to help players with in the NBA as a head coach. And I still think he very much has an assistant coach mentality. Look at a guy like Eric Spoelstra, for instance, okay? The guy was in the film room for years. We all know the story of him with the Heat and going, being raised by Pat Riley, essentially, there with the Miami Heat. This was a guy that is still not afraid to do the little things that maybe a head coach doesn't really do nowadays because of all his time as an assistant and all his time in the film room. Those are things that have never left Eric Spoelstra. I don't think these are things that have ever really left Nick Nurse. I think the guy just flat out loves to coach. And that's why he's dedicated his life to coaching. 23 years old, got a college coaching job. Not too shabby. Yeah, not afraid to leave the country to become a head coach. Does that for a decade. Comes back to the United States. Coaches in the G Leagues, D Leagues. And now he's an assistant coach. 5 years under Dwayne Casey. The guy just loves to coach. I think that's going to be a special thing for everybody in that Sixers locker room. And I am looking forward to seeing what he could do with this squad. The thing is, it is going to come down to the players. I like using the term willing participant, because it really does matter. Players have to buy into it. The story I was telling you about him and Pascal Siakam reminded me of Tyrese Maxey calling Doc Rivers a year ago, saying, all right, what do I need to do to get better, coach? Like right after the season. And Doc Rivers says, step 1, go on vacation. Then in a week, call me and we'll talk about off-season preparation. The thing that also prevents you from getting more excited about a hiring like this, somebody who's won a championship recently in the NBA, someone's been a coach of the year recently in the NBA. One of the things that, yes, you're excited, you're happy about it, but there's still so many unknowns with this roster. Salary cap wise, you don't know where we're going to be at. Max is going to get a rookie max deal most likely. James Harden is still a question mark. I am going to assume that James Harden is not back. So what do you do with this roster? My plan is you trust Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. That's my plan. And yes, you still add talent, whatever you can, with the money left over. But I am assuming that PJ Tucker, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, and Tyrese Maxey are in your starting 5. And you'll round out whoever the 5th guy is with either an offseason acquisition or promote from within. I know a lot of people like Springer to be thrown into the mix there, and I just don't think he's ready for that. But again, we'll see what happens in the not too distant future here. But there's a lot of question marks here with the 76ers, which prevents you from getting more excited about this Nick Nurse hiring. Does this affect, and this is one of the things I was kicking around yesterday after I did the emergency show. Does this affect where your ruling is on James Harden? Does Nick Nurse being here want you to have James Harden back? Or does this make you say bye-bye to James Harden faster? How does the Nick Nurse hiring impact your decision on whether or not you want James Harden back here in Philadelphia? Because here's one thing we do know. James Harden did not want Doc Rivers back. Doc Rivers is gone. Now Nick Nurse has been hired. If you're James Harden, I would assume this is a more attractive deal for you as a head coach. He's also coming in here as a champion. He's coming in here having won. He's coming in here having had success with lesser players. So he's going to come in here with, for lack of a better term, and I know there's a negative connotation to this, he's going to come in here with a little bit of an ego. What I do works. Do what I do. Do what I say, and it'll work. James Harden going to be cool with that? Joel Embiid going to be cool with that? I know the story of James Harden, or excuse me, I know the story of Joel Embiid meeting and sitting down with Nick Nurse is noteworthy, but would have been more noteworthy is if something leaked about James Harden meeting with Nick Nurse and James Harden say, well, if I come back, yeah, I like this guy, but I still want to see what's out there. That would have been something. We don't have that story yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if Daryl Morey and James Harden, being the bosom buddies that they are, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a conversation had. So what do you think about it? You like this? You like a Nick Nurse? All right. By the way, my friend Devin Caney, I saw her tweet yesterday, and I totally agree with her. I'm already over the trading a doctor for a nurse. I'm already over those jokes. I'm with Devin on that one. Oh, okay. Anyway, so there's a lot of question marks going into this upcoming season, and I'm really curious to see how the 76ers handle it, and I'm really curious to see how Nick Nurse handles it. You know, I've told you guys before about my buddy Bennett, season ticket holder of the Sixers, big Sixers fan, and he's a very measured take guy. Like, I am high and low. I'm boiling hot. I'm ice cold. That's kind of how I operate in life in general. But and I'm mostly on the ice cold. I'm a cold-hearted man. No. But I was like, hey man, so what's your take? You know, season ticket holder, the whole thing. And he's like, I'm still curious. You know, that was his take. This is nice, but I'm still curious, like, who's he going to be coaching? Exactly. Before I make a decision, who is he going to be coaching? And I think most Sixers fans are down the avenue. Like, somebody was tweeting me about or hitting me up in the comment sections here on the Farzy Show YouTube channel about how Nick Nurse, or if they hire Mike D'Antoni, is giving up his season tickets. So yesterday I wrote it back and I just said, hey, congratulations on keeping your season tickets. Nick Nurse, baby. I want to see the details of the deal, and I want to see the details of the roster, but we're not going to know that for quite some time. But here's what I do know. I feel like of all the hands the 76ers could have put this franchise in, they're in the best possible hands of the availability of the coaches that were out there. And that includes Sam Cassell. It includes Monty Williams, who's now being tied to the Raptors to take over for Nick Nurse, as is Kenny Atkinson. There's a lot of names out there. But I'm very curious to see the roster that Daryl Morey is going to put together. In the offseason, preparing the 76ers to be a better team than what they were last year. Step one, firing Doc Rivers, good move. Step two, hiring Nick Nurse. Again, best possible hands the Sixers could be in going forward. Now Daryl Morey has got to work on the roster, because as much as I have confidence that Nick Nurse is going to get a somehow better version of Joel Embiid for the postseason, as much as I am confident that Nick Nurse is going to find a better level of play for Tyrese Maxey and make this guy even closer to an all-star, as much as I'm confident that he's going to get a better version of Tobias Harris out of Tobias Harris, as much as that's all true, that's still not enough. That's still not enough to make me look at this team and go, oh, they are an NBA Finals contender. It's not enough. Daryl Morey has a lot of work to do. And I don't think you're making any over-the-top move in this offseason to make anyone in the next 4 or 5 months say to themselves, the Sixers finally have a roster that I am confident will not only make it out of the second round of the playoffs, but compete for an NBA title. I don't know who that is. And with the idea of James Harden coming back to Philadelphia, as much as I don't want it, the Nick Nurse idea of Nick Nurse being here as the head coach and the facilitator of the offense, the guy prepping this team for battle, if you will. If Nick Nurse is the guy heading that up, I'm definitely more confident in Nick Nurse doing that than I am Doc Rivers. So that's a positive. But I don't want to commit 4 years, $210 million to James Harden. On the back end, first off, I don't feel like that roster is winning. And second, I feel like that roster is just going to greatly depreciate over time. If this is the Nick Nurse era in Philadelphia, I want to give him as close to a clean slate as possible. And I think that includes Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. And I hope that does not include James Harden. So to answer the question, where I stand on it, how does this impact my decision on whether or not I want James Harden? I still don't want James Harden. I want Nick Nurse to take over here, and I want Nick Nurse to get his guys in here as quickly as possible to see if this Sixers team can actually be a legit title contender. I'll look early at the chat right now, and I'm looking at the Jacob Media YouTube channel, and I see Idol76, what's going on. And this is exactly where I'm at with you, with a lot of people, and I know a lot of people share this sentiment. I don't think Nick Nurse can coach Hart into Embiid, unfortunately. Idol76, thank you. I know that's where a lot of people are at right now, and that's why ultimately it's going to come down to the roster moves Daryl Morey is making. If you're able to go out there and get Chris Middleton, that's a big pickup for the Sixers. I don't think it's a franchise-defining move. It's like everyone knows you don't have that LeBron out there like a couple of years ago. You don't have even a Steph Curry type. You don't have anyone out there that's going to make you really go, oh, wow, now the Sixers, now they really got a chance. Like even Kyrie Irving being out there makes me terrified more than it does anything. It doesn't make me go, oh, they get Kyrie Irving. Oh, that's a move. Because we're not playing 2K, all right? We're not playing video games here. You got to worry about personalities and how they come together. And Kyrie Irving is a huge red flag of a personality. The most attractive name out there, to me at least, is Chris Middleton. Let's see what you could do there. Fred VanVleet is out there, and I'm curious to see if VanVleet would come down here and hang with his former head coach. That's definitely a curiosity there. But there's no franchise-defining guy that is out there. These are all guys that are supposed to come in and help your franchise-defining guy in Joel Embiid and hopefully Tyrese Maxey as well. This is the first step. You go out there, you get Chris Middleton, we'll have another conversation about how you can get excited for a better version of this team. And then ultimately, I really feel like this season is going to come down to not getting more out of Joel Embiid in the regular season, but it's ultimately going to come down to Tyrese Maxey and how much improvement he can make as a player. And if he can go in the professional sports world, the route of a Jalen Hurts, hey, no pressure, young fella. If he could go in the improvement of a guy like Pascal Siakam in the basketball world specifically, then this Sixers team is going to do some great things this year. But it's going to come down to Daryl Morey making more acquisitions and bringing in more talent that's ready to win now. They already have the first step down there with Nick Nurse. And then it's going to come down to the improvement we can see from Tyrese Maxey. What more can Maxey do? More. That's what he can do. 43% from three, 20 points per game. What more can he do? More is the answer to that question. And hopefully in this offense and whatever Nick Nurse decides to organize this roster, more. Nick Nurse coming here, he's got to get more. Daryl Morey has to help him get more and make that as easy as possible on the head coach. I'm excited for as excited as you could be by hiring a head coach and not making major acquisitions to this roster just yet. But I am eager to see what this roster will look like in the not-too-distant future. Let me tell you guys about the great people at Steven Singer. Steven Singer Jewelers. One place, one price, perfect price. Online at IHateStevenSinger.com. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, is home of the perfect price. Now, what's the perfect price? The perfect price means when you walk in, you don't have to worry about haggling or negotiating or having that pressure. Everything is put at the perfect price each and every day. Steven Singer Jewelers, online at IHateStevenSinger.com. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. One place, one price, the perfect price. Online at IHateStevenSinger.com. Before I get to the chat check, oh, man, let me just take care of one thing here for a second here. The Phillies start a 3-game series with the Mets tonight in Flushing, okay? If you got the postgame show in April, I see you in the chat here. I know you caught the postgame show the other day. This is where optics are everything. If you would have told me going into Atlanta that they were going to split with the Braves, I would say, oh, great. Okay, cool. You know? I was like, okay, good. They didn't get first off, they didn't get swept. They didn't lose the series. They split with the first place Atlanta Braves, a team that is obviously ready to win right now, while the Phillies are still very much feeling themselves out a little bit. They went into Game 4 with the opportunity against the Braves to win that series. And a team that has spent $243 million on a payroll walked into a store with $243 million, and they walked out of the store with no fifth starter. That's just comical to me. There's no better option in the organization right now than Dylan Covey to be your fifth starter. There's no better option when you have spent $243 million. There's no better option than Dylan Covey. All right, just let that settle in for a second. Okay, so let's just live in that world. There's no better option. Okay, so he's your starter against the Atlanta Braves. 7 runs, 5 earned, no defense behind it, by the way. 2 errors on 1 play. Right through the legs of Trey Turner, and Kyle Schwarber runs over the baseball in left field. 2 errors. I'm not even mad. I'm impressed. That's difficult, but the Phillies did it. So if you would have told me before this series that they were going to split, I would have said, great. But then the optics of having the opportunity to go out there and actually win the series, and they forget about wetting the bed. They pooped the bed against the Braves in Game 4. That's horrible. That's horrible. Optics matter, and man, those were some bad optics in Game 4. Schwarber, another home run, couple of blasts, just great. Wonderful. Whatever. That's my take on the Phillies. But I do look forward to seeing them play in the Mets. See what goes on tonight. See if Ranger Suarez can get his first good start of the year under his belt. That'd be nice to see. Let me tell you right now about the great people at Manscaped. Manscaped.com, the leader in below-the-waist grooming. Go to Manscaped.com. Use promo code Farzy for 20% off and free shipping at Manscaped.com. That's Manscaped.com. Whoa! No, I'm going to get to that. Not going to. Steven, you're not putting the quarter in yet. I'll be right there. The leader in below-the-waist grooming. Join 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and their skin-safe technology that helps them reduce the risk of nicks, so you can manscape with confidence and comfort. So go to Manscaped.com. Use promo code Farzy for 20% off and free shipping. How about Freestone Farm CBD at FreestoneFarmCBD.com? You'll love their tropical tasting Bayox that clocks in at a chart-topping 24.1%. And Super CBD, which is half Hindu, Kush, and 21%. So next to these guys are off the charts. So try the great people at Freestone Farm CBD, FreestoneFarmCBD.com. How about the people at PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs. That's PHLSportsNation.com. Okay, Steven, now I'm going to you. Steven says, Farr is still apologizing for the fightings. How is it people are telling me to be happy that they split with the Braves, and I'm pissed that they split with the Braves. They had the opportunity to win the series against the Braves, and they poop the bed. against the Braves in Game 4 of that series, and I'm not happy about it. And it's still May. By the way, I like Peter Gammons. If you didn't see Peter Gammons on Twitter, Peter Gammons likes Memorial Day as the first day to look at the standings. And I think that's very fair. First day to look at the standings. However, I've been looking at the standings for a while now because I just can't help myself. And the Phillies being 7 games out, the Phillies being consistently 2.5 games out of a wild card spot. Yes, it's not that early anymore. Is it not August? Yes, it's not August, okay? But that doesn't mean you should look at the standings. I'm still looking at the standings. And I think everyone to a man needs to look at this team and be very real, all right? I know everyone's hoping, and yes, I'm hoping for that great second half push, blah, 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 whatever. But how do you hang your hat on that? I can't do that. I can't just sit back and go, oh, they'll turn it on later. No, let me see a better brand of baseball now. And I never thought the Phillies were going to win the division. I thought at best, maybe in August and September, you could talk about them competing for the division. But right now, they're not giving me any hope that they could do that. They split with the Braves. Great. They had a position to win the series against the Braves. Now, that would have been something. And they just showed why they're not ready to win. I mean, Trey Turner all year long with the bat has shown you that he is not ready to win for this Phillies team, unfortunately. He had the great 2-run home run on, Wednesday last week, and that was great to tie things, force the extra inning. I'm happy about that. But everything else, the errors, he has been pedestrian at shortstop. And he has looked god-awful at the plate trying to hit for this ball club. I still want to believe that there's a better version of Trey Turner there that we're going to see this year. There's going to be an all-star level of play from him. There's going to be, a 350 on base percentage from him. And I'd love to see it. I'm rooting for it. But how do you bet on it at this point with how lost he has looked at the plate? That's just where I'm at. Steven's loving my banter here with him. Thank you, Steven. I appreciate it. Where am I at? Farzy Show YouTube channel. Let me flip over here, see how you guys are doing on this fine morning. April, good morning. Sean Kilrain, what's going on? Sean Gillespie, what's popping? Nurse is a step up from Doc, can actually make adjustments. The word adjustments is going to be such a buzzword this year when it comes to Sean Desai as the defensive coordinator of the Eagles. OTA startup today, by the way. And when it comes to Nick Nurse, adjustments is going to be a great buzzword for the Philadelphia sports scene this year, more so than it has in years past. So I am excited to see what adjustments in-game these guys can make. Because we've seen great coaches, I'll just say this, we've seen coaches before. No, I'll say the name I'm thinking of, Andy Reid. Andy Reid, when he was here in Philadelphia, would have these great game plans, and then game day, no adjustments. Things are different than I thought, can't adjust. Doc Rivers, can't adjust. One exception of being a good adjustment was Daniel House going into the playoffs off the bench as like a 6-man type of deal for a couple of games. That was a good adjustment by Doc Rivers, but that was a few and far between type thing. Nick Nurse comes in with an MO of being able to make adjustments. Certainly made adjustments. Look, Kawhi Leonard, if he doesn't play in that series, the Sixers win that series. End of story. But what helped Kawhi Leonard were the adjustments that Nick Nurse was able to make in that series as well. So, yes, it's going to be adjustments, Sean Gillespie. I agree. April, not going to lie, I'm still annoyed about how crappy the Phillies played on Sunday. That was an awful, embarrassing game to be on ESPN. April, great point. National TV. And you lose 11-4. Trey Turner now hitting 243 with a 288 on base percentage. Good Lord. Now I'm looking at the box score again from Saturday. Or Sunday, rather. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Good Lord. But April, I'm still with you. Sean Kilray, I agree. But to split the series, I'm good. That guy Covey isn't the answer. Bye, Felicia. Sean, I agree. And there's certainly guys that I'm looking forward to come up and hopefully helping the Phillies in the not too distant future from down on the farm, so to speak. And I can only hope that happens in the very near future. but it's going to be a minute before we really see it, unfortunately. I love, hey, man, I love, and I saw, Jake Cave got player of the week, I believe it was. Good for him. But, I just want pitching, and I need a lot of it as soon as humanly possible. Because watching this, Andrew Painter, we're all rooting for that he actually makes it up to the majors this year, and the word is that he will at some point. But until then, please don't tell me that with this payroll, you're going to be struggling to find fifth starters. That is very unnerving to me. Very unnerving. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now. What else I got? Sean Gillespie. Embiid doesn't look good regardless of coach with his postseason play against the Celtics. I don't disagree. See, this is what sucks because I am not at all a wait and see type of person. I'm a right now type of person. And it's going to be 82 games of waiting and seeing again with the Sixers. And as I told you guys after the All-Star break, when there was, 26 games left in this past NBA season, I said, you know what? This is what I want in the last 26 games. I want you to give me hope and confidence that you guys can make it out of the second round of the playoffs. And you know what? They did that. They gave me some hope. They gave me some confidence. They didn't make me bet $1 million that they were going to go out there and actually do it. But they played better than I thought they would down the stretch. The whole season is going to be that for me now. With Nick Nurse, with whoever your starting five is, and that being up in the air for not just an offseason, but an 82-game regular season is going to grate on me. Oh, boy. It's going to be a grind, folks. It's going to be a grind. So that's where I'm at as far as that goes. Good times. Keep losing myself. Here we are. Sean Cameron, I hope the Sixers get undrafted guys like the Heat, two guys. Oh, my God. They can help at center. They absolutely need help at center. No question about that. Yeah, and I see you talking about right here, Sean Killer, Caleb Martin last night. This is where attitude is everything. For a guy like Caleb Martin to step up there in Game 7 of that series, I was going to wait a little bit till the morning rush, but why not just get into it now? That just shows you don't give a damn. No, this is my moment. But you're a nobody. I'll show you. And I think a lot of that is Spoelstra being a great head coach, and I think a lot of that is Jimmy Butler and the attitude he has on that team where everybody's being held accountable and everyone's taking that next level. Guys like him, Strauss, Caleb, by the way, I say guys like him, I mean guys like Caleb Martin. Strauss, those guys just aren't afraid of the moment. Even Kyle Lowry, who's an absolute leader, and yes, won with the Raptors under Nick Nurse, and he's got that same type of attitude where the players hold each other accountable. That has to happen here. Whether that's, and I hate that is the way it goes down, where PJ Tucker has to get in the ear of Joel Embiid to say, no. You think you have given all you got right now. You think you're cooked. You keep digging. You keep pushing. And that's what Joel Embiid was able to do to help the Sixers win in that overtime game of Game 6. That's what you got to have. You have to have moments like that. Game 5, excuse me. That's what you have to have. Moments like that. It's a shame. I'd rather it be like the Heat, where everyone kind of knows the other's role and nobody needs that extra push. You just know that you're going to be held accountable if you don't already have that extra push in you. Yeah, Caleb Martin didn't need that last night. Nurse's ego cannot compare to Ducks. Sean, I'm with you. Wait, haha, that was me. Oh, what, on Twitter? Were you the one hitting me up on Twitter? Oh, in the comments. Hey, yeah, you were the one saying that about your season tickets. Well, congratulations, eh? Yes. Mihai, we got a nurse replacing the doctor. Mihai, I'll let it go for this one show. Dylan Covey is not major league material. Splitting with the Braves was okay, but the Phillies need to get over 500 ASAP and play well versus the Mets. Yeah, please. Please and thank you. Would love to see it. April, definitely not apologetic, realistic for sure. Oh, you're talking about the Phillies? Yeah. Professor Dutch, smoke him if you got him. What's going on? Hey, I hope the Sixers let Harden walk and go after Van Vliet. I'm all for it. The Heat might be, Sean Gillespie, the Heat might be too tired now to defeat the Nuggets. Should have finished the Celtics earlier. All right. Thank you, everyone. I think there was a couple more people on Jacob Media. Babs! What's up, Babs? Barbara Carroll, what's going on? Good morning to you. I'm sick over the Phillies, too. A lot of DH-type players on this team. Nola is way disappointing. I concur. Nick Nurse called Embiid a big flopper, and he's his coach now. Martin Father was an NBA star, so that's true. Yes, all is fair in love and war. And Nick Nurse referring to Joel Embiid in the way that he did. Joel Embiid, as recently as the first round of this past playoff run, talking about how the Nets were taking a Nick Nurse approach to trying to get calls and not get calls for the Sixers. Like literally saying a Nick Nurse approach. That's funny because, yes, Nick Nurse is his coach now. I think he gets it, but I think there's a respect there. And I don't think this coaching hire happens without Joel Embiid giving his blessing. And Keith Pompey putting it out there that, yes, they met, yes, they had a conversation, and yes, it went well, and then the Sixers, for them to hire Nick Nurse, I think that's a great thing. So I have a lot of hope for those two. And I think it doesn't happen if they don't get along and each are for coaching with one another. So I will say that. So that's where I'll go as far as that goes. Where is that thing with the thing? I don't know. Whatever. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now as far as that scene goes. Okay. Now, the 76ers lost to the Celtics again in the second round, seventh game, whatever. I can't look at the Celtics and point and laugh because they're a better team than the Sixers. So what right do I have to laugh? But I know that a lot of people would have enjoyed the Celtics just getting swept on out of the playoffs. By the way, the Morning Rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars, SkyMotorcars.com. Oh, Justin Teep. What's up, Justin Teep? Nice to see you. I know that a lot of people like to hate on the Celtics, and I am certainly one of them. I can't point and laugh at a team that has beaten you consistently. I can't do it. However, I know most people would just like to see them swept out of the playoffs, and the Heat finish that off 4-0, and yeah. But, man, there is something so beautiful about the Celtics fighting all the way back to force a Game 7 and then pooping the bed the way they did last night. Oh, baby, that was enjoyable. That was better. And for me, and I speak for me alone, that was so much better than watching them just get swept out of the playoffs. Especially because they showed that fight. They showed that they weren't some pushover. They eliminated the conversation of, well, if the Sixers made it past them and they won in Game 6, then maybe. No. Celtics are far better. The Celtics go in. They win 3 in a row to force a Game 7. And how about this? The Celtics did not score less than 90 points in a game the entire season, and they were held to 84 points in the biggest game of the year. Chef's kiss. It's beautiful. And now the Nuggets will be back in action for the first time in like 5 months, it feels like, when they start up that NBA Finals, baby. NBA Finals is where we're at. Look forward to seeing what Jimmy Butler does, and if he really makes us regret Tobias Harris over. Although I really feel like, and I know that's getting a lot of attention now, it made its rounds on social media again yesterday. I know that the bottom line is Tobias Harris or Jimmy Butler, but I think we all know it was Ben Simmons and Brett Brown more than it was Tobias Harris. Because if they would have chose Jimmy Butler over Ben Simmons and Brett Brown, then Tobias Harris wouldn't be here anyway, most likely, because you couldn't sign both of them. Maybe you keep Tobias Harris and you let Brett Brown and Ben Simmons go, and you keep Toby and you keep Jimmy Butler, and you have those guys with Joel Embiid. I'd still like that team a lot better. But here we are. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll be back with you guys. 7:10 start time tonight for the Phillies. I'll be back with you guys on the Jacob Media YouTube channel talking all things Phillies, hopefully after a Phillies win with Ranger Suarez on the hill tonight. Going up against Kodai Senga of the New York Mets. 7:10 start time. Senga is 4-3 on the season with a 3.94 ERA. Ranger Suarez comes in tonight with an ERA of 9.82 in his 3 starts so far this season. It hasn't been good. Let's hope for a better start by Ranger Suarez tonight. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is my name is Mark Farzetta. This is the Farzy Show presented by Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. My man, Pots and Pans, Jim Hyde of Produce Program, did a wonderful job as per usual. Be back with you guys tomorrow, hopefully talking about a Phillies win. And I'll be with you guys tonight for the Phillies post-game show on the Jacob Media YouTube channel, brought to you by our friends at Colony Pools and Power Washing. See you guys tonight and tomorrow morning. Have a great rest of your day. See you.